Hello, good evening once again to another edition of Worldview, where we tell the African story. Every story on the continent is discussed on this program. I am Fidel Amachi Owusu, your regular host for the program. Today, before I even move to the topic that is going to take us to the Horn of Africa, and specifically Ethiopia, the second most populous country on the continent, and what is happening there, I would like to introduce my guest to you. I have with me, today we have two guests, but then one is quite behind time, and then he is not with us now, so I'll introduce my first guest, that is Dr. Vincent Ajali-Mensah. He is a security expert and a human rights activist. He's also a lecturer with the University of Education, Winneba, and he has been a regular guest on this show. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
All right. What is it about Ethiopia? Since November 2020, Ethiopia has been having a war of attrition, where the northern Tigray people are fighting the central government over political struggles, peace with Eritrea, and other political issues that has bedeviled the country. What is most important is the fact that people are dying, many people are displaced, and we have about 2 million internally displaced persons crossing the border to neighboring Sudan and South Sudan. This is very worrying and needs discussion. With a very booming economy and a huge population and a host to the headquarters of the African Union, Ethiopia is very vital to the stability of Africa as a whole. Viewers, as we always do, if you would like to join us, you text us through 0243 158653. 0243 158653. We are also going to be live on Facebook via Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. When you go to Facebook and then you key in Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, we are definitely going to be with you wherever you are, if you are not home. So I'll move straight to Dr. Ajali-Mensah. Doc, I believe that for the purposes of education, as we always do, we would like you to give us a background of what is happening in Ethiopia, even before we proceed.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone who is watching us from wherever you may be, your homes. Ethiopia is one of the traditional countries in Africa that everyone respects. It has a lot of history behind it. As you said, it's the second most populous nation. It's a country that has all kinds of issues. It is associated with many things. The history of Africa, we know of famine in Ethiopia. We know of its war with Eritrea. And recently something nice happened, which is that they try to patch up with Eritrea to become good neighbors. But the product of that is what we are discussing today. Now, one of the things that viewers have to take note of is what is happening in the Tigray region have a very long history behind it. In fact, it dates back to the time of Emperor Haile Selassie, when he invited the British to bomb the Tigray people in 1943, because that was the first time an uprising started in the region. And from there was systemic attempt to marginalize the Tigray people. In fact, to enter into the university, Haile Selassie University in Ethiopia, you were required to pass a particular language, which the Tigray people find difficult to pass. And so they were unable to attend university. The result was that they mobilized and formed the Tigray People Liberation Front, which has been the vehicle through which they are still struggling. and they contributed to the downfall of the government in the 1970s, and then finally they took over from the 1990s. Now, the other thing about the Tigray people has been that you need to understand there are some dynamics going on in that part of Ethiopia. Now, the Tigray people, the Moro people, and the Amara people, and the Sudanese-speaking people form the majority of the population of Ethiopia. And they've managed to form an alliance through which they negotiated a constitution that gave power to regional governments to form armies and all that. And they have lots of people in the Ethiopian army. So what is happening has a political, ethnic, and linguistic dimensions to it. And it's complicated, and I believe that as we proceed, we'll be able to discuss it in its complexity.
So, Doc, you look at a country that was never colonized, technically, until Mussolini came in the 1930s. This particular topic, the reason why it is very important is that many African countries face the issue of cohesion, national cohesion. And Ethiopia, hosting our headquarters, the AU headquarters, is facing this problem. Now, if you look at all this, we've given the, geographical and linguistics and all that background that is needed. But what do you think is the current state of the conflict? What do you think about it?
Well, like you said, it's the Tigray people that stopped the Italian advance in Ethiopia. So they are experiencing that. But the current situation is more complicated. One, as I said, the new Ethiopian Prime Minister had a meeting with Sudan, had a meeting with Eritrea, and it is known that the meeting they planned how to go about this conflict. Now, the Tigray people have a lot of people in the intelligence services and in the army, as I said. They got the information and prepared for it. Now, prepared for it meant that they were prepared for war, and they took a preemptive attack that started the whole thing. And if you see, I'm linking it to the national cohesion issue that you talk about. If you see, immediately the attack happened, the next steps that the Ethiopian Prime Minister took was to fire people from within the military, from within the police, from the security services. Now, that sends signals. Now, another thing that happened was people who were Tigrayans in other parts of Ethiopia have to abandon their businesses and everything and go back to the Tigray region and to ask for protection. Now, as you said, this is the problem of Africa. We are unable to develop nationalistic minds. And we have, in every African country, we have managed to divide ourselves into pieces. Now, Zimbabwe is one country that has done it very well. They've managed to understand that the Shona and the Ndebele are cousins, and therefore we are the same people. And the average Ndebele tries to understand Shona, the average Shona tries to understand Ndebele. Now, that has been the cause of the stability in Zimbabwe. They have their own problems. But what is happening in Ethiopia is a microcosm of what happens all over Africa. Either we are divided along ethnic lines or we are divided along religious lines. And there are all kinds of social stereotypes that we use to divide ourselves. And African policy makers need to rethink. African government leaders need to rethink, even our political parties.
No, I'll come back to you, the prescriptions, and you are good at that. When we get into you come back to that. Lawyer Kofi Boni, welcome. It's been a while. Are the courts keeping you away from us?
Oh, life has its own diversity.
Anyway, you look good. Lawyer, let's start baptizing you with the topic. Today, we are discussing Ethiopia and the kind of internal conflict that is happening there. And we are linking it to the national cohesion across African states. Now, Doc has given us the background. But if you look at Ethiopia, being a country that everyone was saying they were never colonized. So we thought that the colonialists came in to divide us. Ethiopia was never colonized, but they are still divided. What is our problem?
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here once again. But you know, my position has always been one. That the African story has never been good. You know, no matter how you say it, the African story has never been good. And COVID has shown that we are still a long way out. You know, now we are trying to rally and buy some of the vaccines. So the gifts are coming, you know. Well, I think there's so much greed. There's so much in concentration of power. What Dubois taught us in his book, Evolution and Changes, you know, megalomania, you know, power drunkenness of African leaders, you know. And of course, the general question of poverty has always been there. And the fact that in ethnic diversity.
Okay, viewers would like to go on a short break. We'll join you soon. As we have already mentioned, if you'd like to join us on this program, you will text us through 0243 158653. You can do so on Facebook too. We will read all your messages for the consumption of all. It is worldview. You have an angle from where you would also like to contribute, and then we read all the messages out for all to hear. Like you were on something that was very interesting.
Yes, I'm saying that the African story has never been good. We have not only the internecine wars, we have power drunkenness of politicians, we have the same poverty where economically some people feel that they have been deprived. And then you think that the ethnic diversity that we have, that should rather, you know, bring some competition, variety, style to us. You know, that has been a being. Okay, because you always have, you know, these ethnic groupings fighting for supremacy, and when it happens that way, it affects the center, and I think that has been part of the reason Ethiopia, like many other African countries, you know, have had a problem of, you know, cohesion, lack of cohesion, because almost always people are fighting for. Well, sometimes you might say that real substance, if people are not properly remunerated, they are not gainfully employed, they don't seem to control, you know, the resources that determine the social and economic and political heights of the country. You may, you know, say that yes, there may be some reason for that. But how our leaders can come together and think about the national interest and promote that national interest and move on, I think that has been part of the major problem, you know, in Africa and of course in Ethiopia.
Lawyer, let's look at a country like Rwanda. We are always praising Rwanda. But we also know that it was the triumphant entry and salvaging by the Tutsis that actually stabilized the country. And as we speak, the Hutus still have some grievances because they feel that Paul Kagame is not treating them that well. So if you look at even the success story of Rwanda, people, you can see some grievances here and there. Is it a problem that is being solved, or are we making attempt to solve some of this lack of vision?
You see, Kagame might be noted for what he is. Of course, I don't want to say a crisis leader. He emerged at the time that Rwanda was nearly wiped out, you know, as a nation. And so coming out from that thing and then emerging as a very strong military leader and strengthening himself, concentrating power, and then given the fact that the people thought that the nation had been torn apart, okay? So if you had a leader who could rally all the people around, then I think there was so much, you know, going for him. So in spite of all the problems, I think that they agree somehow that there's a leader who has a vision, who has strength of character, and has been able to make Rwanda the center, all right? You know, because in many situations, you have African leaders fighting for personal aggrandizement. I do not think that I want to see that of Paul Kagame. Kagame seems to be saying that, look, we can do it. We have been in crisis. Yes, a lot of us have been killed, but we still have to rally around and think more about the nation. So you don't have the story of a lot of African leaders coming and amassing wealth, you know, and seeing themselves as the only state. Here is somebody who seemed to bring everybody on board, you know, to move on.
But we've had instances where he has jailed people who are trying to compete with him.
Well, you see, I am Kagame as against my own.
Because today is national cohesion.
Yes, Kagame as against my own Kwame Nkrumah. I see Kagame differently, you know, from the ruins of war that he emerged. Okay, so I thought that he might have felt that, look, I am the leader, you know, to move the nation around. Okay, I am the leader to take the nation somewhere, and somehow he feels that if he allows any other person to come in who is too weak, it might affect the growth and stability of Rwanda. I seem to share that view. Now, if you are talking about whether Africa is winning, you know, some countries are doing well. Our own Ghana, you know, is doing well, because you see that, yes, anytime today people are talking about two parties, geopolitics, and the NPP, NDC.
Yeah.
But whichever way it is, when the NDC is in power, you do not see them using extra judicial, you know, means to unnecessarily suppress the opposition if it's NPP. And when NPP too is in power, you do not see this kind of extra judicial hand, you know, to destroy NDC. So I think that somehow they have come to understand what democracy means. Senegal, I don't think, is also doing badly at all. We have had quite a number of elections. Recently, was it in Zambia, you know, where incumbents are losing, you know, elections. And I think that is quite significant. If you can have a situation where incumbents can be losing election and, you know, nothing really happens. Look at the case of Zambia. The incumbent was making some kind of noise, but once the elections were declared, he seemed to have accepted that. Kenya has its own problems. Somehow they are trying to resolve that. And then you have our Togo, Tshisekedi's, you know, Zaire, you know. So I think that it is not the best, all right? But we need a lot more. And I believe that in the next 20 years, you are going to see practically positive, you know, signs, because the African blues are also making very strong.
That's quite predictive, but I'll come back to that.
Yes,
I'll come back
yes.
to that. Doc, is it a paradox or is it an irony? Someone becomes prime minister. The next moment he makes peace with a warring neighbor, or a neighbor that had either before been a hostile neighbor, and then the person receives the overall peace prize that any person pursuing peace around the world comes, the Nobel Peace Prize. Abiy Ahmed. He takes the Nobel Peace Prize, and the next moment the country that he is supervising or the country that he is leading is in turmoil. How did we get here?
That's how strange the world is. One, so that's why it is important to celebrate the fact that he made peace with Eritrea. That's a major problem solved. But you see, then they have a common enemy because the Tigray region is considered by Eritrea as a problem, and Ethiopia considers it as a problem. Now, so even if you see the war, Eritrea is attacking. They have denied,
from the north.
But there is evidence that they are attacking. The Ethiopians are attacking. There is evidence that UAE drones work there. There is many evidence all over the place of other countries. Now, but that is the problem with African leadership. You see, we lead with intentions that are not nationalistic. That's the problem. From one African country to the other, what we have been doing is, instead of building a nation, we keep dividing ourselves into pieces. We keep drawing on our ethnicities, our cultural identities, rather than building programs for national development. Look at this country. The regions, the new regions we have created, they are based on ethnic lines. The districts that we are creating, when I went to it was a Hutu Senya district. It became a Hutu, and then there was a Hutu Senya. Now there is a Hutu and there is Senya. Those kind of things. So you see that we keep drawing on our ethnicities and dividing up ourselves into pieces. And that is how Ethiopia got to where they are today. Because there is somebody who is not thinking about how to build one nation. There are leaders in the TFPL, who in the Tigray region, who are also thinking in the same way. And if you see what is happening there, it's about the Amara people thinking that they've lost their hold on power. The empire that was set up for them has now moved to the Tigray people. And so they are finding a way of forming an alliance with the Oromo people to get their power back. You know, so this kind of ethnic divisions that we have in Africa is the problem in Ethiopia. If we can begin to see, my colleague said that some African countries are doing well. It is rather the Arabian countries that have managed this well. They have used religion to kind of bring everybody together. We are Muslims, we are Islamic people, although they also now have their problems, where people are talking about you are a Sunni or a Shia or whatever, that kind of thing. But the problem with African countries is this lack of national cohesion. We need, I mean, you say we come to the prescriptions, but it is important that African people, forget about the government, African people begin to see themselves. Japan learned from that very well. For after the bombings, the bombings, they've learned from that, and they have stopped dividing themselves into pieces. But we are yet to get there. And until we get there, we are going to be seeing these problems all over the place. You mentioned Rwanda. Look at Congo. Look at Cote d'Ivoire. Look at Sierra Leone. Look at Liberia. It's because some people thought that we are indigenous people and others thought that we are the superior returnees from America who are here. So those kind of things have been the cause of most of the conflicts in Africa. Although it's resource-based, it's also identity-based, and that is the problem in Ethiopia.
All right. Before I come to you, lawyer, there is this map, because we think that our viewers must understand what is happening. So we will interrogate this map. Yes. So this is the story we are discussing. So the Tigray is the orange color at the top. That is at the north of the map. This is the map of Ethiopia, the ethnic map of Ethiopia. So we have the Somali people with their territory, the Oromia people with their territory. So the current prime minister is an Oromian, and they are the majority people in the country. And we have the Amhara people, and then the Tigray are the small part at the north. So if you look at it critically, they share the border with Eritrea. Eritrea is at the top there. We can see it close to the Red Sea. And the Eritreans are now attacking from the north, while the Ethiopian army attacks from the south. So you consider the Tigray people are in a very difficult situation as we speak. And they also share border with Sudan. So we are told that many refugees have crossed the border from Tigray to Sudan, where they are seeking refuge. So this is the map of Ethiopia, and this is how the story is going. So, and as at now, the people of Tigray, some of them are attacking the Amhara and the Afar regions. Because if you are coming to us, then they are also, responding by attacking soft targets that they feel will help them. And then their capital town is the Mekele. That was captured by the government, and they have retaken it back into the TPLF are taken it back. So this is what we are talking. This is the geopolitical depiction of what we are discussing.
And there is some history that Djibouti is also in the
yes, you can see. So this is the Horn of Africa, actually. So we have Somalia, we have South Sudan, Kenya, we have Eritrea, Sudan itself, and then Uganda is somewhere around the Horn of Africa. And this is where the story is coming from. So back to the studio. Lawyer, Doc mentioned Congo, and if you mention Congo, you are talking about resources. This is a very resource-rich country, but as a result of this division and lack of integration and cohesion, the country is still suffering. Now, what implication does these problems, or do these problems have for resources in the country?
What happens that way? Definitely, you will see that you cannot fully tap your resources. That's what happens. The country becomes poorer and poorer. Because and resources, not only in terms of minerals, but also human resources, right? Instead of harnessing your resources, human everything, to fight your common enemy of disease, ignorance, poverty and all. You have these, you harness the human resources, the military armament that you have, and then you go to war, you kill each other, because a lot of lives have been lost.
Okay.
About, I think about 10,000 so far or more have been lost. Okay. And then you have even the little infrastructure that you have, you destroy the infrastructure. Education has to suffer. The health situation is overburdened.
Yeah.
Now with the coronavirus, okay, you also have that situation. So you have a situation where the health situation is not the best. Then you have the coronavirus attack that can also exacerbate, So totally, you see that every aspect of the nation, goes down. And I think that's the way I want to look at it.
Okay. All right. Doc, the humanitarian aspect. Aid agencies are complaining of not getting access to the Tigray area because the Ethiopian government is not giving them that access. Communication lines have been cut. Banks are not working. Transportation, everything has been cut. In fact, the place has been isolated as part of the military strategy of central government. Now, when things like this happen, when central government is stopping international aid organizations from getting to such places, you have your, you are the current chairman of Amnesty. What do you say about this?
Okay. Now, first, let me add something to what my colleague said, lawyer said. The Tigray region is known as Region 1 in Ethiopia, and it's not for fun. That region is rich in gold and many other minerals. It's a resource-rich region. So the conflict has other dimensions. That's one. Now, as you put it, Amnesty International, for example, had produced a report known as the Axum Report. Axum Report because during this particular resurgence of conflict, re-emergence of conflict, a lot of massacres have happened.
Yeah.
In one instance, and one of the massacres happened in this area. In one of the massacres, over 1,100 civilians were just killed. Now, sometimes Ethiopian soldiers, National Defense Forces, will enter into a home rape people, kill them. There is one story where they killed a man and the wife, okay, and stayed in their home. They had 30 goats, and they ate the goats for 12 days. When they finished eating, they left. I mean, how do you do things like this? And so naturally, they wouldn't want international agencies to observe this kind of practices. And so the response is to block them and prevent them access to that area. So the international human rights organizations, the international aid agencies have had opportunity to complain. And in fact, one of the things that we need to note is that some of the refugees that have been going to other countries were known to include even Ethiopian soldiers. Okay, so the situation is complicated, very complicated. How do you cut access to basic things like communication? They are bombing and destroying bridges, dam that money, hard-earned money, have been spent to construct. You bomb it because you don't want it to provide electricity to the population. These are gruesome anti-human behaviors, you know, and it is documented that both sides in the conflict have committed crimes that could be labeled as war crimes. Because if you enter into a church and kill 30 Coptic priests, 100 children, okay, 30 women, are they fighting you?
No.
One aged person who is about 80 years, okay, was captured, tied to a tree, tortured in many ways, and killed and later burnt. And his only crime is that he was shouting, today, Woyani, tomorrow, Woyani. And Woyani is the Tigray word for, Tigray pride for their uprising. And so an 80-year-old man talking like this, professionally trained soldiers will pick this person, tie the person up, shoot him. I mean, the international humanitarian law suggests that even if the person is holding guns, shooting at you, once you have disabled the person, you should stop attacking the person. But professionally trained Ethiopian soldiers are committing this kind of crimes. Professionally trained Eritrean soldiers who are supporting are committing this kind of crimes. And that is what international aid agencies, international human rights organizations are documenting, speaking to the UN, the African institutions, the AU, which is headquartered in Ethiopia. Unfortunately.
Doc, lawyer. Some time ago, I remember we had to speak about the fact that ICC is only using Africans as examples. But this massacre going on, except for maybe South Asia recently in Afghanistan and other places, we don't see it except in on our continent. So when it comes to the legal aspect of this, what do we foresee?
Well, I think there was this protest African countries were making that why should they be limiting their actions largely to African nations. But if you look at the lurid, vivid pictures that Doc has enumerated about fellow Africans, dealing or dishing out acts of atrocities and wickedness and savagery to their fellow Africans, then what do you have to do? And the point is that, because we are not that strong, militarily and all that, sometimes when it happens, somebody who bears the cat, as it were. For example, what is happening in Ethiopia right now, if you decide that a regional body, whichever way you want to call it, or even the African court, should take up this. We have issues of security. Charles Taylor, for example, you know what happened. So he had to be, sent somewhere, jailed somewhere. So the point is, otherwise, this should be a very good example for a united African voice okay, to take up the human rights abuses, arrest the culprits, and bring them to justice. But I'm saying that we have instances where we may have minor cases. We have national, institutions, we have states that are not strong enough to deal with their own human rights, abuses. So you ask yourself, who does it? Who goes out, to cause this? And what resources do we even have to do that? And security challenges, humanitarian, because you see, COVID has really exposed us. Okay, and if you are going to do this, to set up courts and all of that, get the military, security agent apparatus, and the people who have to pay, all of that, because justice is a huge infrastructure, and to go this far, you are going to arrest them, and you need, if the national authorities are involved, you need superior force. Are we prepared for that? Do we have the resources? We'll still be looking up to the Western countries and whatever. So that is the dilemma we have. Otherwise, this one, it should be very clear to us. And those who think that they are pro-Africa, more Africanist than whatever, they should start rewriting their notes. Whether the Western countries are any. Because you see, when you look at ICC and some of those, I tell myself that, well, can we do it? Left to ourselves, can we do it? So now, who is going to talk? Who is going to get up and talk? And it's not only about talking, it's all talking and backing your words with action. Because somebody has to stop these Eritreans and Ethiopians. It's very sad that you are doing it to your fellow, national, because whichever way you look at it, the ethnic diversity, whichever way you look at it, it will come back to the same thing about Ethiopia. Is that not true? They're all Ethiopians, about 108 million, people. So if you do that to them, then when some other person is doing to you or to them, what do you do? So I think that it's a very sad thing, and when you hear that this can be done by Africans to themselves, you don't know what to do. You just sit down there and say, why? And you take the whole words that we say as it were exploiting us. You take them, their humanitarian, whatever, their public opinion to stop some of these things. So I don't know how we can be so barbaric. Whether we have been civilized or I don't know, because you see the military, the security forces. I think Colin Powell said a soldier is a civilian uniform, and vice versa. You understand? And when you are a soldier, your primary aim, or even a policeman, security, is to protect the weak, your own people. But if you visit mayhem on them for no real apparent reason, I don't know. It's sadistic.
No, I'll come back to you.
Sadistic.
Come back to you. Sadistic. Come back to you. Doc. Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD. That is the equivalent of ECOWAS on the Horn of Africa. So this organization is in charge of the regional, that's the original body which Ethiopia belongs to. Now, if you look at their history, Ethiopia has been very dominant in this organization. In times past, they could enter Somalia at will. And because they were instilling some form of stability there, nobody could stop them. If you look at the region, it is only maybe Kenya that seemed to rival Ethiopia of some sort, and Uganda too tries somehow, and maybe Sudan. But as it stands now, the regional power is actually having an internal problem. How does IGAD come in the situation?
I think that we should understand this from a certain context. This can happen anywhere in the world. If you take North America, assuming US is having a challenge, what can Canada do? That would be an important question. Assuming that Germany is having a challenge today, France is having a challenge, what will the small countries in Europe do? Okay. Now, so in the same situation is what we have. So Ethiopia is a troubled country for ages. They have problems with Egypt, they have problems with Uganda, they have problems with Sudan, they have problems with everybody. You know, the Nile River issues, okay? And they have problems with Eritrea. So for the purposes of this conflict, they've managed to come together. Now, my colleague made mention of some of the failures. Yes, we have, for example, before I come to IGAD, we have, for example, the African Peer Review Mechanism, which was supposed to work. It hasn't worked. The Security Council is not working. What will that regional body do? Are they going to go in and say we are stopping Ethiopia by force? Or what? That's the issue. So if you look at the dynamics, but it's, you see, Thabo Mbeki of South Africa said something, and I've always said that South Africa will have been the country with the moral authority to stabilize Africa. But they failed. That's why people have been saying is the sleeping giant of Africa. Because he said to African leaders that the time should come so that we will be able to look into each other's faces and say, Fidel, the way you are governing your country is not right. And you can look into my face and say, Vincent, the way you are running your country is not proper. You can look into lawyers' face, say, the way you are running your country is not the right way to go. Africa hasn't gotten to that level because almost every one of them is doing the same thing. So nobody has the moral authority. I mean, what is Museveni going to say? Because if you look at what he has done in Uganda, what is he going to say to Ethiopia? The massacres that have happened in Uganda, and look at the massacres happening in Ethiopia today. But what we need to note is that we have come into the 21st century, where these regional bodies have to rethink the purpose of their existence. And that is why civil society needs to rise up to the challenge. Citizenship needs to rise up to the challenge. You know, for example, but that is where we are failing. If you look at even our education curriculum, look at the privilege we have given to mathematics, English, so-called science, which has become the stumbling block for progress, to the consistent disadvantage of subjects that should develop citizenship values in our people. Okay? So we used, those days they used to have civics.
Prof, you want to go there?
Yeah, those days they used to have civics. Where is it? Okay? And we don't give, no, I'm serious about this, because we don't seem to be developing a nation. Okay? We don't seem to be developing a nation, and that is our problem.
I'll come back to you. Let's read these few comments here. This is from Muhammad Shafiu from Kaswa. Prime Minister Abiy's arrogance is causing Ethiopia today. I don't wish him what happened to President Idris Deby of Chad. Wow. I don't think Abiy is on the battleground like Idris Deby did. And then this is Joseph Yabua. I am watching your program. The problem of Africans is different types of languages all over Africa. The whites saw it and tried to control it with one common language. Even in the Bible, when God saw that the people were had one language, he saw that they could achieve their aim. That is why he confused them with different languages. Joseph Yabua from Olebu Ablekuma. Thank you, Joseph, for your theological examples. Lawyer, as a continent, now we are coming to the prescriptive aspect of this as a continent. What must Africa do to overcome these divisions that is destroying states? In neighboring Nigeria, we had the Biafra War. After that, the country was united, and today people are still calling for the secession of the southeast Nigeria. If you go to Cote d'Ivoire was a bastion of stability in the sub-region when Houphouët-Boigny was in charge. After he left, we came to have this citizenship thing. people who were born whose great-great-grandfathers were from Burkina and all kinds of things. You go to Cameroon, we have Anglophone Cameroon trying to succeed. You move to Liberia, they have just come out from a war. And that war was about indigents as against those who were brought in. Sierra Leone had similar issue. If we are going, we go on and on and on. What must Africa do to come out of this?
It's a difficult thing. Prof started by saying that we should go back to civics. Interestingly, paradoxically, those days when we had civics, I don't know the human rights situation in Africa. And today, people are saying that we need more science and ICT and mathematics to move on. And now people are now realizing that the classics, literature, religion, and all of those things, government, history, because we have stopped reading classics, we have stopped Latin. People are even saying that we learned French or local languages or Swahili and all of those. I think we should have common values. You see, I've said that AU will not succeed. Will not succeed because if you take the...
Council, that's radical.
But I hold it. You take the European Union. Because I remember my history those days. When we were talking about European Union, and then you had countries like Portugal, Spain, and I think Turkey. They denied them access.
Wow.
Because they said they were not democratic.
Yeah.
That was the time of General,
Franco.
Franco and those people, But we, all kinds of shapeless, formless, bodies come together. Some are democratic, some are semi, you have those. When you have crisis. But the man there is not democratic. Even today, people are still criticizing democracy. They say, what is democracy? Some people come in, they say they are chiefs. They used to have some our own values, and those states where a chief can forcibly marry somebody's wife or whatever. They say that we should go back to those moments when the chiefs had real authority. So it's not a very easy thing. I believe that let's have common values. Even if it's education, let's have that. Then we understand that this is what we are. These are human values. Recently, I think there was some, I don't know, was it on the radio or TV, and then they were talking about put culture and those things, and then core values, let them be core values. You see, we go and talk about, excuse me to say, we have been here, we talk about LGBT and all of those. Now, the point I'm making is that human values are central of life, fellow feeling, humanitarianism, okay, and trying to understand that there should be justice, equality before the law. Let's have those things, and we have them, and then we set our bodies. It's not like everybody should qualify. No, there must be standards. I don't think that we just need equality because Ghana, Nigeria, Togo, La Côte d'Ivoire, we are all at in one region. Let's have values. If it is the case that Ghana shares some values with Rwanda or with Egypt or Morocco, let's move in that direction, or even Israel. But this whole thing, because we are in the same region and we box ourselves together and people are misbehaving, don't do anything about it, it's disturbing. Again, we take Nigeria, we take Ghana, we take La Côte d'Ivoire, we take Senegal, even South Africa that we have mentioned. I have said that if you take all these countries that had independence, South Africa was doing well. Where is it Manuel? What was his name? The Minister for Finance. They were doing wonderfully. Now I don't know their economy and what is happening and the level of corruption that is there. So we should identify some bodies, and they should be the leaders, and they should be model for the rest of us, to follow. Our people must integrate. If our people themselves don't integrate, you don't set up a superstructure where the structure, the basis of is weak. It won't work. Okay, so our people themselves must understand.
Some of the viewers are also giving some prescriptions.
Okay, wonderful.
Ethiopia, Liberia, and Haiti were only black countries who were not colonized, yet internal wars always spring up among them, and therefore we can't call Africa a sovereign continent. This is Ernest Mensah from Bodi in Western North region. The African Union has failed the continent, not sparing other regional bodies too. Since Africa can't fund these institutions, they are not in the capacity to intervene. In addition, I believe these regional bodies have outlived their usefulness, and they should be proactive leadership to steer the affairs of regional bodies in Africa. Are African leaders willing to commit a quota of revenue to stabilize these institutions? This is Jebrel from the Kofi Annan, the Cryptic, yes, Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center. And then, dear panelists, your discussion. Okay, this is pathetic. Can't our own president invite the Ethiopian president for some discussion on what is going on? Africa must tackle its own problems through diplomatic means. This is Tony Owusu Abeka. She feels that our president can intervene.
And then they accuse him of trying
no, maybe we have the moral right because we don't have any serious...
They accuse him of trying to be the president of Africa.
anyway, let's continue. Ethiopian soldiers are running away, telling the young in the capital, Addis Ababa, to join them and fight the rebels in the north. This is shame. Kwame would like to know where you are texting from. And then the current leaders don't think about Africa but themselves. ECOWAS is older than EU. EU is working, but you just travel to any African country and you see, just travel to any African country. So he's talking about the restrictions with the movement from one African country to the other. Jonathan Coty is texting this. Doc, viewers are not happy about what is happening to the continent or what we are discussing. Where youth are being, instead of being given jobs, they are being called to take guns to fight their fellow youth in the north. Cohesion. Doc.
Yeah, in war theory, nobody is happy. Because even once there is war, nobody is happy. So we, the panelists here, are also not happy.
Yeah, of course.
And I believe the Ethiopian Prime Minister is not happy. Because everybody wants opportunity to enjoy, even if you are fighting war, to enjoy the booty, you know, that you are getting. So I don't think any African is happy with what is happening. The problem is the African that will stand up and say, this is what we have to do to get out of it. And I like the point lawyer made, that the African Union has become a collection, or a marketplace where all African countries are. Okay, the European Union has values. If you don't abide by those values, they kick you out. Look at what is happening with Belarus. Okay, Turkey has been begging to join the European Union. They say for some reasons we can't admit you. You know, that discipline need to be instilled. But then, what is the root of the discipline? From the national level. We need to be consistent at the national level, solid at the national level, to go to the continental level. Like I said, we have failed in building nations. We have created societies that are divided. And so there's no discipline at the national level. Civil society is dead in Africa. So there's nobody to hold leaders accountable. I have been saying, and I may be wrong, that even in our own country, a time may come, a president may come to do even the unthinkable, and people will say, but when Kweku was there, he was doing some. You know, we have justification for every wrong thing that is done. And our model is the past. The past that is not a good story to tell. It's what we always compare ourselves. So there is no plan for future. And that's the problem. So one, we need to develop a Pan-African solution to the African problem. Nobody will come from anywhere and solve your problems for you.
Of course.
We have to rise up to the challenge. And I will challenge the African intelligentsia, the African political class, the African religious class. See, Desmond Tutu and co have done a lot in South Africa. Who are the Desmond Tutus in Ghana? Who are the Desmond Tutus in Ethiopia? Who are the Desmond Tutus in Nigeria? This is the question. You know, so unless and until we are able to develop those citizenship values that see people owe allegiance to the country, to the nation, to the constitution, than to their ethnic, tribal, political, and sectional interest, Africa, unfortunately, is going nowhere. But there is hope. If you see the way the youth are mobilizing through online platforms and demanding a common solution to their problem, you can say we are going somewhere. It started in Nigeria with the End SARS. I believe that that struggle, although brutally suppressed, will develop into a civil struggle. Civil struggle not in terms of being creating chaos in the nation, but where people will begin to build new value systems that will lead to a challenge to the political class, and they will either have to abide by it or not be in governance. Until we get to that point, unfortunately, we are not going anywhere.
Lawyer.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we are not going anywhere. That's how he ended it. In his submission, he mentioned the youth. We tend to learn from our parents. They say your best role model is your parent, and our parents are those in charge now across the continent. Now, if there is no national cohesion in Somalia, there's no national cohesion in Ethiopia, we don't have same in South Africa, and we don't have national cohesion in DR Congo, the youth, despite our frustration, we want jobs, we want all that, but in terms of cohesion, what's the way for the youth?
Education, education, education. To properly educate themselves. But I think that we need to also emphasize that he talked about the intelligentsia. I think the intelligentsia had to develop a mass, set of principles. And whether you're going to call them African principles, see, in the West, you always have somebody, some philosopher emerging and becoming the eye and conscience of the nation. Descartes and, they have them. But we, Thomas More, and David Hume and others. Now we don't seem to have those kind of people. We need sometimes have Patrice, Professor Lumba, also making some points. So I think that we have some core values, whether it's love for nation or it's about honesty, or it's about some principles might be there. Okay, and whether the universities, I don't believe in University of Ghana, Ibadan, or whatever. Let's have some strong universities that cut across. If you are in Ghana and you attend the university, it's about the best, just as what is in South Africa or somewhere. The values are about similar. And let's have that. The youth themselves, if indeed, you take our schools, the universities and other schools where you have youth leaders, some are doing well. Some of the things you also hear about the youth, very, very disturbing. Okay, it appears that when we have motherless, fatherless sort of thing, it affects the youth. And so we need to give them some hope. They themselves can do very little if they don't have proper modeling, upbringing, right? Because they are going into this ISIS and whatever. So I believe that, yes, we need to have the values. We need to understand that the future holds good for us. But the youth themselves must properly educate themselves, must have the proper vision, and then be able to move on. If you don't do that, then you're going to have real problems. A very radical position, however, somebody might want to say that, well, is it about recolonizing Africa? Because Africans who go outside Africa do well. Is that not the case?
Yeah.
But inside Africa, we appear not to be doing well. So what is the point? All is not yet lost. Here in Ghana, we have had some leaders. You take Asantini, for example. You take Sheikh Shaibutu. You take Archbishop Pamabakel, and you have some voices. Some people who demonstrate leadership that cuts across ethnic, religious, boundaries. And if you can have such people, where there's crisis, they can come in and stabilize the situation. I think we can move on very, very well. I believe so.
The African leaders don't know where they are going. Their citizens also don't have anywhere going. That is Jonathan Kote. And then, good evening, this is Samuel Opoku from La. The youth is making impact anyway, but as to whether the leaders will listen to us, that is the problem. That is from Samuel Opoku from La. Doc, now we take your last word on Ethiopia. What do you foresee happening as a security person? What do you foresee? And what should we expect?
Well, if you look at the nature of the conflict and the kind of actors involved, your only prediction is that it's going to drag on for a while. It's not ending anytime soon. Because, you see, when people have an identity issue and you think you can solve it through military means, it's never going to stop. And my colleague mentions a cardinal point I want to end on about developing these values. The challenge is that we have developed the values. The political leadership is not committed to them. Look at Ghana. So many years ago, we have freedom and justice in our coat of arms. Okay? Yet, the legal system has been abused. We have in our current constitution the directive principles of state policy, which talk about inclusivity and all that. What are we doing with them? Okay, there is still complaints all over the place, and that is the problem. The Ethiopian authorities need to sit with the Tigray people, understand their core challenges, their core demands, and have a national consensus. There is a newly established national commission for something, I've forgotten the exact name. Like something on the model of what Kufuor did in Ghana some time ago. They need to use that commission to solve the problem through civil means rather than the military means until they come to that realization. And if it's necessary that you give some autonomy to the Tigray people, give that autonomy to them. It's better to have a country that is functioning. If you go to Switzerland, what do they have? Even on their currency, they have 3 languages. It doesn't change anything. The country is booming, is surviving. But Africa, the insatiable desire for power, I should be the one, shut up, is what is causing us.
That is a very interesting example you give, the confederacy that Switzerland has. If you can adopt that, and it will help it. Please, all these are the creation of our so-called colonial leaders. I mean, the white people are the cause of this. Kojo, we don't know where you're coming from. That's Kojo's allegations. And then Africa as a whole must unite. That's the only way we can do without the Western countries. That is Samuel Opoku again from La. Luke chapter 12 verses 15. Then he said to them, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verses 10. Nor thieves, nor the greedy, nor drunkards, nor slanderers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. Greed and selfishness is the fundamental cause of that Africa is witnessing. What Africa is witnessing. Reverend DeGraft Samson. Thank you, Reverend. Africa's problems must be solved by Africans. African leaders, wake up. It's now or never. Samuel Opong AJ from Kumasi. Thank you, Samuel. The African leaders don't know where they are going. Their citizens, okay, I think we've read that from Jonathan. And then the youth is making impact. Okay, we've also read that. Thank you very much. I will move to Mr. Kofi Boni for your closing remarks and the way forward. I'll draw the curtains to the program.
Yeah, I think Ghana we have this NCC. They used to have this Constitution Week, and then they have constitutional games that the schools play. And I think that we have learned how to integrate. And that one, I can say it. In Kuma's time, we had this boarding school system, and intermarriages.
Yeah.
The guy will marry the Fanti, the Ever will marry the Santi, and we are doing well. And it's so beautiful because we've not had the properly so defined, national civil war. You may have some groups fighting.
We've never had.
Yes, even the religious whatever too. It's also the same, and been wonderful. And I think that we need to strengthen that. And I believe that apart from that, we also must have instances where let's have some culture. I believe that AU, let's rethink AU. Let's have a situation, if it's Ghana, Nigeria, La Côte d'Ivoire, let's have about 4 or 5 countries. Let's start. Let's have our values. If you fall within it, you come. If you can't meet the standard, we don't admit you. And move on. Let us not blame the whites. It's defeatist and escapist. We blame them. They are getting on. Their nations are properly integrated and they are doing well. They have values. They can discipline their leaders, their president. We are not able to do that. So if we say that they have caused it, meanwhile they have their standards and they are moving on. And when we create our mess here, they come and resolve the problems. I do not think that that is good now. So I think let us, know what we are about, stand up to it, accept where we are faults, and move on.
That is lawyer Kofi Boni prescribing the functionalist approach to building regional organizations. This afternoon, news came that former President Olusegun Obasanjo has been appointed special envoy to Ethiopia to go and help solve the problem. And Professor Lumumba actually announced this. That's where I got it from, and I think it's credible. We all wish him well, that peace comes to Ethiopia. That's where we have our African Union. It speaks bad that where our headquarters is located is where we are having turmoil. It doesn't speak well of Africa. We thank you all for your messages. Today I was joined by Dr. Vincent Mensah from the University of Education, Winneba. He is a human rights activist and a security expert. Again, we have Mr. Kofi Boni. He's a legal practitioner and a political commentator. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We thank you all and meet you same time next week. I am Fidel Amachi Owusu.